Okay, let's see if I can get a rise out of you this morning. So, who gets my reference with my title? He's alive, he's alive. Any takers? For those who don't know, an old movie that was based on a book called Frankenstein. So, there's something to that. There's something to that. So, how did we get here to this Easter Sunday? How do we get to the resurrection? Easter is the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus. Its inner meaning and spiritual significance is the awakening and raising of our consciousness, that consciousness of the I am within. The resurrection is the raising up of the whole man, spirit, soul, body, into that Christ consciousness of life and wholeness. Now, this time is not a season of death like most of us grew up with, but it's a season of resurrection. And that's why we're here this Easter Sunday, to experience the resurrection that we understand Jesus had, but this resurrection is also for all of us right here. Let me ask you, during this Lenten season, did anybody do any kind of fasting, staying away from something, or? Well, if you didn't, you're in luck. You don't have to do it just for Lent. You can start today, you can start tomorrow, but don't wait till tomorrow every day. So wherever you are, start today. And you can, and when I say fast from negative thinking, from, I'm going to call them wrong beliefs. And as I like to say, because nature abhors a vacuum. If you remove something, put something else in it. So if you're fasting from negative thinking, how about adding some positive thinking to yourself, to your life? When you wake up in the morning, start with a simple prayer that we've heard that if it's the only thing you say, you've done enough, and it's to say thank you. Thank you for having had a good night's rest. Thank you that you're here to experience a new day, another day, so you can be of service to all those around you, so you can be in connection, in communion with those around you. And when you're doing that, you're really having that communion with the divine, God, the Christ within, whatever you want to call it. So, when you're doing fasting, you might expect, and maybe that's why you're afraid to do it, because you know that crucifixion is coming, right? But what does crucifixion really mean? It means the crossing out of those error thoughts. When you do the crossing out of the error thinking, you are really doing something good for yourself. Now, we understand that Jesus, after being crucified and listening to good music that comes out of the blue, it's all right. That these 3 days that Jesus spent in the tomb is really, they represent the overcoming of those error thoughts. First is non-resistance. The second is the receiving of the will of God. And the third is the fulfillment of that divine will. Now, after experiencing this, we come once again, Easter Sunday, when we experience resurrection. Now, if you think about everything in life is about going through that Easter experience, taking conscious effort to change the way you're doing things, change what you're thinking about, letting that crucifixion come upon you so that you can release everything that does not serve you anymore and have a new resurrection, have a new life for yourself when you go through this process. And it could be a daily thing, it could be a weekly thing. And yes, it's not something that can happen just like that. It may take years. I know for me it did. Anybody else? When you've tried to change something you weren't crazy about yourself. But guess what? Every little step counts, right? A little step at a time. I like to say nowadays more than ever, I really take this to heart. If I have something big that I think I have to do, I try not to worry about it. What I could do at the moment? I can just take the very next step. What is the next thing for me to do? And that's where I let that divine guidance come to me so that I knew what's the next step that I need to do. What's that expression that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, right? So that's all you could do. Take that first step, and after you do that, what's next? Take the next step, right? And so on and so forth. So speaking of resurrection, what do you think Jesus said when he rose from the dead on Easter Sunday? April's Fool, I'm not really dead. Now we can see Easter as the resurrection of the mind from the darkness of its error thoughts, doubts, and any false beliefs into the light of understanding. We actually have in Unity, one of our 12 powers is understanding. And it is understood by having a light, that light of faith that is within us. And that is that understanding. We use other powers, including the power of love, which we celebrate this month. And the power of love is about being in harmony. It is also understood as the power that unifies everything in the universe. So if it's unifying everything in the universe, guess what? It may be unifying us, not just to each other, but to what we call God, to what we call that Christ within. And if we're in unity with the divine, is there anything outside of that?
No.
I don't think so. Even when you think you are, right? All you have to do is correct your thoughts. Come back to yourself. Everywhere that we talk about spirituality, what we're really talking about is coming back to your true self. A Course in Miracles says that A Course is not about changing anything, but removing your awareness to love's presence, to God's presence. So let's remember that. Anytime that we have a thought of lack, a thought of doubt, a thought of concern, let's get back to square one. Let's get back to our oneness, to our inner self. This whole thing about Easter, crucifixion, the resurrection, is really about showing us that everything in this world, in this life, is about cycles. An easy one to explain about is, of course, the seasons, right? Every year we go through summer, then comes the fall, then comes the winter, and we understand the winter as the time where everything's kind of still, time of maybe death. You know, the plants seem to die. But when spring comes, what happens? New life, resurrection. Everything starts to grow again. Everything, colors come back, right? Mm-hmm. And then we get to experience that summer. And yes, it gets a little hot around here, but let's be happy about that, right? So yes, and we also, of course, I'm sure you can all think for yourselves, all those cycles during your life. We are born, we go through childhood, We become young adults when we know everything and everybody else doesn't. But then we grow past that and we realize that we didn't know anything. And I think that's where most of us begin to search, to look for what is out there that could be better for us. How can we make ourselves better? And I've come to understand more so than ever now that the more we search for that, the easiest way to do it is to lend a helping hand, to help others. I'm sure, if not all of you, most of you have experienced that when you help somebody else, who do you think gets the best gift? Yourself, right? Mm-hmm. It goes back to that connection, that oneness. As you give, so you receive. Exactly. And I know you've heard it before, the more you give, the more you receive. But why is it that we don't want to believe that, even after we've experienced it? That's where going through these seasons of crucifixion, death, and resurrection come from. Bless you. Let me ask you, can you think of a resurrection that you've had recently? And I'm actually asking you for feedback in 1 or 2 words if you want to share any resurrection that you've experienced lately in your lives. I don't have a Donahue mic, so speak out loud. Yes, we all have those moments that, I think a lot of us, I don't know each and every one on your stories, but at some point we come to a moment that we go through an experience that we could truly say, I could easily not be here. And some of you know my story. Just a couple of years ago, I was still going through some issues with cancer. And yes, I had a couple of moments where easily I could not be here. But I knew that I had to be here for a reason, that I had to keep going. And not because I was afraid that my human body would disappear and not be here. Yes, I had some of that, but I had made my peace with it. But something deep within me actually kept me calm. I think it was that connection to what I like to call my divinity that told me, yes, I'm going through some hard times, but I will be okay. There's more for me to do here. I've said it many times. After going through that, I could honestly stand here and say, and now I can go through anything. And like it or not, I've had to go through even harder things than that, and I won't go into it. But I'm glad that I am actually growing from this. We grow from those moments that we're not so comfortable with. You've heard, I'm sure, the story about how a pearl becomes a pearl, right? If it wasn't for that roughness from the sand in the oyster, we would not have those beautiful pearls. The carbon, for millions of years in the depths of the earth, slowly but surely becomes a beautiful diamond. And you notice the difference, the darkness of the carbon and then the shining and the lightness of the diamond. Consider that when you're going through these experiences, you're slowly but surely becoming a diamond. Isn't that a wonderful thing to know? So yes, let's take comfort that everything that we go through, just like Jesus did through his crucifixion and resurrection, these are wonderful examples for us to take on, to know that no matter what's going on in your life right now, how grim it looks, there's always tomorrow. And you've heard us say before, nothing lasts forever, right? This too shall pass, be it good or bad. That's why we cannot say this is good or this is bad. Something just is. What am I learning from it? Fortunately or unfortunately, we learn the most from those hard experiences. So maybe we should be even more grateful for those experiences, because we know it's going to make us stronger, it's going to make us brighter, and we can actually be that light, be that love that's in the world, that we want to see in the world. So remember, we can celebrate Easter, crucifixion, and the resurrection every day, and actually be happy for it. Why not? Go on for the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the year, knowing that you are that light, that you are that Christ light within, that it is always within you. We have here in Unity our second principle, that that spark of divinity is within us. And it goes in line with the first principle, that there is only one God and one presence in the universe. And call it what you will. Call it just creating energy, creative energy of the universe. It's all one big, beautiful energy. Nothing is separate from the other. The way we see each other here, we see ourselves as separate, but in truth, there is nothing between us. We can kind of think of this as we're just having an illusion. But the truth of us is spirit. The truth of us is that soul that we have. And the truth of us is never separate, never apart from each other, and never separate or apart from the oneness that we call God, that we call the Christ within, that we call the Holy Spirit. I'd like to leave you with one last thought. What did Jesus say when he sat by the fire after his resurrection? I am a born-again Christian. Thank you.